Sorry for the interruption. Let's continue. So, this title can be a book title, a song title, a poem, a movie, a painting, or whatever. Now, a person's name, or the author's name, or the writer's name, that does not come under title. This is used specifically for titles only. You can use it for other purposes, but as we discussed earlier about SEO, the SEO ranking will be affected if you don't use the tags for their purpose and you use it just for the sake of making it italic. If you want to make any text italic, you don't have to use cite, you can use I simply. But if you are writing a author's name, a book, a poem, a song, then you can use the cite tag. Similarly, for all the other tags we have discussed. Now, the last quotation or citation, last topic under this is BDO, which is bi directional override. What does this mean? If I write a text, let's say this is lecture, and I write it under BDO and then slash BDO, and here I have written this is a lecture. How will it print it? It will print the line from right to left instead of left to right. So the output would be ERUTCELSISIHT. This will be the output. So basically it will be reversed. It will print from right to left instead of left to right. This will only happen if whatever browser you are using is supporting the BDO tag. Most of the browsers are. So this is the bidirectional override. Basically it changes the text from right to left instead of left to right. So this is all about quotations and citations. Let's once just revise what we have learned. We learned about ABBR, which is for abbreviations. We learned about address, which is for writing the address or any personal information for that matter, which will be italic. In this case it will be dotted, underlined. In this case, the next case is BDO, which is bidirectional override. It will print the line from right to left. Then we have block quote, which will define that this line is from some other place. Then we have cite, which basically defines the title of the work we are talking about. And at last we have the Q tag, which is used for quotations. We can add quotations directly also, simply like this. So you don't necessarily have to use the Q tag, but something that you actually want to be quoted, you want to tell that it's quoted, or you want to define that it's basically quotation, then you should use Q tag. So this is about quotation and citations. The next topic, and a very easy topic, is HTML comments. Comments, those who have done any programming language before know that what are comments, but those who are beginners, comments are very simple to understand. These are basically something that we write in our code, but we won't see it in the output. What does this mean? For example, I have written a code HTML. Now I want, for future references, I should be aware that this is the root element. But the web page I am making, I don't want it to display there that this is the root element, right? Or similarly for head, I want to for my future references, or for anyone who's going to read the code, I want to make sure they know that a head is for meta info, right? So again, I don't want this in my web page, but I want this in my code. Any such thing that we write in the code but it is not executed is known as comments. Comments, basically the purpose of comments is to make the code more readable and more understandable. Now, how do we write comments in HTML? In different programming languages, there are different ways to write write comments. In Java, we write // we write the comment. Anything we write like this won't be executed in the output. It is just for our reference or anyone who is going to read the code. Python, we use hash. How do we write comments in HTML? We first angular bracket, then exclamation mark, hyphen, hyphen, whatever I want to write as the comment, and then hyphen, hyphen again, and then angular bracket closed. So note that exclamation mark is used in the starting only and not or at the end. So basically hyphen, hyphen, and just we have to add an exclamation mark here. And usually all the tags are in angular brackets in HTML, so this is also going to be in angular brackets. So the syntax is very easy to remember. Most of the things that we start in HTML documents, like all the tags are in angular brackets. Even empty tags, they are also in angular brackets. So first for comments also we'll start an angular bracket, then we have to put hyphen, 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 hyphen. Just at the start, before hyphen, we'll put an exclamation mark at the very beginning, and we'll write whatever we want to write. Here we can write anything. There's no scope of error, because even if I'm writing a code here but it's in this angular bracket, then there won't be any error generated, because this is a comment. This won't be printed in the output. This is not going to affect the output in any way. So we can write whatever we want. We can place our reminders, we can place our notifications, or we can use it to hide some content that we wrote earlier. We wrote a paragraph, but now we want to write another paragraph in place of that paragraph, but we don't want to delete that paragraph, so we can hide that paragraph for the time being using comments. Similarly for line or whatever we want to hide. And we can also use this comments between like in between lines. For example, if I'm writing a paragraph, this is and then here I start comment, hyphen, 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 then great, and then hyphen, hyphen, angular bracket. So great will be hidden. Now I can write great anytime I want by just removing this, or I can keep great hidden, and then I can continue whatever I want to write, and then /p. So this is how we can hide inline content. So again, the most important thing we discussed is the syntax of the comment, which is angular bracket start, exclamation mark, hyphen, hyphen, whatever we want to write, hyphen, hyphen, angular bracket closed. Now let's move on to the next topic, which is about HTML colors. Now HTML color, of course we discussed about font colors, right? We discussed the attribute color, and then colon, and then red. For suppose we'll set the font color as red, and then we discussed about a CSS property which was background color, and again we can specify the color name and it will change the color. But what if I want a very specific color name, right? For that we have different type of color values which we are going to discuss. Before that, we can also set border color, which we didn't discuss in the property. So if I write basically we use this syntax which we are going to discuss in detail in CSS, but for now border, we have this syntax to define a border, 2px, which is the width of the border, then solid. Instead of solid, I can write dotted also, and there are many others, lined also. So solid border means this. Around the text it will come as this. Dotted will be this, dot, lined will be this. So there are a lot of borders which we can use, which we are going to discuss in CSS. And then I write the color. So this is about border colors, whatever the color I want, in this case white. So white border will appear of 2 pixels and solid. So this is how we can define a border color for whatever text I want. So h1 style is equal to, then border 2 pixels, solid, white. Now moving on to color values. We can define color values in various ways. One concept is RGB. Now what is RGB? RGB basically means red, green, blue. So these are our primary colors. We can define any color from this. The range of each color varies from 0 to 255. Same for green, same for blue. So range of each color varies from 0 to 255. Now these are our primary colors. As we discussed, we can define any color from it. So we basically have to just tell how are we going to write this. For example, if I want just red, pure red, then I'm going to give the value of red, set the value of red as 255, green as 0 and blue as 0. This will give me red, and this is how we write. The first value is for red, the second value is for green, and the third value is for blue. Similarly, I can write this RGB value for whatever color I want. For example, if I am writing you don't need to learn all the RGB values. RGB values will already be available on the net, and you don't have to learn it. You can always check it up on the net. You cannot learn all the RGB values. So let's say we have to write the color yellow. So I can write color RGB and then 255, 255 and 0. This will give me yellow. Now how do I know this? I searched it on the net. So you don't have to learn these values. You can simply search it on net, or you can just explore yourself. If you have seen a color, you have applied 255, 255, 0, but you want it lighter or more on the reddish side, less on the reddish side, then you can reduce 255. If you want it more on the reddish side, you can reduce the green 255. So you can do things like this. You can experiment yourself, and if you are looking for a very specific color, you can always search the value on internet. There are you just need to search RGB value and the color, and you will get your answer. Also, there are many websites available that will convert your color to RGB. And another thing that we are going to discuss is hex. If you search directly RGB color also on the net or hex color, you will get as soon as you search it, you will get if you search it with me, you will understand what I'm talking about. You will basically get a color picker. In color picker, you will have HEX value. Search HEX color right now and you will see it. You will have an HEX value, you will get RGB value, you will get HSV value, you will get HSL value, and you will get CMYK value. The most common used values are HEX and RGB. HEX is basically we use hash and then 6 terms come here. We have the HEX value included for all colors in our HTML. We can simply write, this basically means hexadecimal colors. So its values are something like, let's say EB 9E34, something like this, or 7734 A134 EB34 AB. Its values are something like this. So we can pick the color of our preference. There are almost all colors. It's basically a color palette. We can choose the color of our preference and see all values for it, and then we can assign HEX RGB values if we want to assign. So you can also search color picker instead of HEX colors, and that will show you what I'm talking about. So like this, or you can simply search whatever you want to search, the color and the RGB value for that. Now there's another thing known as RGBA. This is red, green, blue. This means alpha. Alpha basically means transparency. So if I write a color 25500, this is red color, and if I, instead of this, if I add 0.5 at the end, so it will display a 50% transparent color, because 0.5. so let's say it will be something like this, a little darker than this but close. This is what it's gonna be like, a transparent version of red. Now this is how you can use. So instead of writing the colors, this new syntax will become background color, let's say, and then hashtag FF63747, sorry. The range of these hexadecimal, all these individual characters in hexadecimal will range from 0, I think 1 to F, no, 0 to F. It will range from 0 to F. And as we already discussed, the range of RGB ranges from 0 to 255, and the range of alpha will vary from 0 to 1. 0 means not transparent at all, 1 means entirely transparent. So that's it about HTML colors. These are the various types of basically declaration for colors. Now let's look at all these in details. Now we have learned what does all these color, how to use all these colors, but what exactly are these colors? As we discussed about RGB basically means red, green, blue. Now RGBA is also an extension of this red, green, blue, alpha. So what does this mean? That this defines the intensity, each parameter, like we write like this, right? So each parameter defines the intensity of that particular color. So the first one will define the intensity of red, the second one will define the intensity of green, and the third one will define the intensity of blue. So as I told you, 0 to 25 it will range, 255, sorry, which basically means there are 256 into 256 into 256 color possibilities. That's like 16777 possible colors which we can define ourselves. As we discussed, 255,0,0 is red, because red is at the highest value and other two are at the 0. Similarly, if I set red and blue as 0 and green as 255, it will simply be green. Now what if I set all the colors to 0, 0, 0? What will this give me? Think. This will give me black actually. Now to display white, what can we do? We have to set all three at 255. All three at 0 will give us black, all three at 255 will give us white. So we are going from black to white. You can experiment yourself by mixing the RGB green values, or there's also an experiment, basically this short mini experiment available on W3 Schools, where there's a color available and you can change its value by changing the value of RGB. So you can check it out. So you can do that. Then we can define different shades of gray. Similarly, if we define, basically if all three colors are the same, like 100, 100, 100, 60, 60, 60, 140, 140, 140, we'll get different shades of gray. So basically if we are using the same value for all three parameters, same value, R is equal to G is equal to B, then we'll get different shades of gray. Then RGBA color values, as we already discussed, alpha is for transparency. So if the transparency is 1, it ranges from 0 to 1. If the transparency is 1, it is not transparent at all. And if the transparency is 0, it is fully transparent. I think I said vice versa earlier, but if the transparency is 0, that means it's fully. If it is 1, that means it's not transparent at all. So that's how we can define. Again, there's an experiment available on W3 Schools website. You can check it out. I'll add the link in description box, so don't worry, you can check that out. So this is how you can define the transparency as you want. Remember, 0 means fully transparent and 1 means not transparent at all. Now we discussed about hexadecimal values. As we discussed that hexadecimal values are gonna start with a hash followed by 6 characters. Now what do these 6 characters represent? The first 2 characters are for red, the next 2 are for G, green, and the last 2 are for blue. So basically the color is RRGGBB. This is what we are going to specify. The hexadecimal values ranges from 00 to FF, and that's why we have 2 spaces for all colors. Okay, now if we display, FF means maximum, 00 means minimum. So FF00, if I'm writing like this means red color. Then 00FF0 green, 0000FF blue. So this is how we can use hex values. They start with a hash. Again, you can experiment the same on W3 Schools or on the color palette. You can search online. So this is about HEX values. Now there's another value which is HSL. That's not so important. If you want, you can explore it, but that's not so important. We usually use RGB and hex values only. So let's move on to HTML CSS now. So HTML CSS, we are not going to discuss the entire CSS in this topic, but we'll have a basic idea about CSS. We already know that CSS is basically useful for writing, for adding beauty, right? We already know this. Now CSS saves us a lot of work because we can control the layout of multiple pages at once. What does this mean? We'll understand. Basically, what is the use of CSS? We already discussed. What is the full form? I hope you guys remember. Cascading style sheet. We discussed in lecture 1. It is used to format the layout of a web page, basically add beauty. With CSS, we can control font, we can control the size, we can control the color, we can control the spacing. Basically, we can format it completely if we want. Now, there are 3 types of CSS that are available. One is inline CSS, one is external CSS, and one is internal CSS. Inline CSS we have already discussed. So we are done with one part of CSS also. Inline CSS basically is CSS or styling done using the style attribute which we discussed, which was that if I want to format the heading, I can simply write h1 style is equal to color and then red. So we have already discussed inline CSS. So it applies a unique style to a single element. Now if I write like this and then I write the heading, then if I write another heading and then write the second heading, do you think this will apply to second heading as well? No, it's basically only for a unique element. Now what if I want all of my headings to be of one color? That's where we can use internal and external CSS. The most common way, which we are also going to use once we know CSS, is using external CSS. Because in external CSS, we have a separate document for HTML and for CSS. So we'll get into that in detail. Before that, let's understand internal CSS. Internal CSS defines a style for a single HTML page. What does that mean? Now for this, there's a concept known as selectors in CSS. It's a CSS concept. But what does this mean is basically we have some types of selectors. Like now if I want to apply the basically apply the styling to the entire all the headings in that document, I can, in body tag, I can simply write h1 and then color is blue, like this is the syntax. In curly braces we are going to specify the property and then we are going to specify the value with a colon. Now the moment I write like this, or instead of this you might have seen it written like this somewhere, it means the same thing, right? So this means that any heading in this document now is going to be of blue color, any heading. Then we we write it in the head tag, we write a style tag. Here style is a tag, not an attribute. So this is not for body. Yeah, we write it in the head tag, then we write a style tag, and then we close the style tag, then we close the head tag. So all the styling in internal CSS comes under head tag and style tag, and then we are going to start with the body tag, and we are going to start writing whatever we want, paragraphs, heading, anything in this HTML document. Any heading in this HTML document will be of the color blue. Similarly, I can add the color for paragraph, red. So any color now will be of the color red. Any paragraph now, will be of the color red. Now what is external CSS? External CSS is basically used to define the style for many HTML pages. What is that supposed to mean? Now if I have an HTML document, right, then I have a CSS document. What this is basically external, where we have an HTML document, we have a CSS document. Now what are we going to do? We are going to connect this CSS document to this HTML document. Now in this CSS we can add a lot of styling. For example, we can add h1, similar to how we did in the internal CSS. h1, then color red. So all the headings will be red in whichever HTML document we link it to. We can link one CSS style sheet to n number of HTML documents. What's that supposed to mean? Basically, if I have one CSS document and I have 5 HTML documents, I want these 5 documents to be based on, like I have 5 HTML documents. I want all 5 of these documents to be based on the same theme. I want the same color for all the headings. I want the same background for all the text, and also then I can connect this CSS to all these 5 HTML documents. How do we connect? There's a syntax for writing this. In the head tag, we are gonna write link, then REL. REL is basically what we are linking. We are linking a style sheet. Because we are linking CSS. What does CSS do? Styling. So link REL is equal to style sheet. This is common. No matter which CSS file you are linking, this is something you have to write. This is common. Then href we used in the link tag also to specify the URL. And here, let's say style.css, we are going to specify the URL. So what's the syntax again? Link REL is equal to style sheet. We have to write this no matter what. And then href is equal to style.css. We are using the link tag with attributes REL and href. REL, the value of REL is style sheet, and the value of href is the URL of your CSS sheet. Wherever you write this line as it is, it will connect this style.css to whichever HTML document you want. So this is how you can connect the two. For style.css, again, you can change basically like internal also, the syntax is same to write the colors, to specify the attributes basically. For h1, color blue, and then close. I can start my document by writing this and it will be alright, CSS document. And similarly for paragraph, for body. Now what if I want one heading of different color using external? Now this is where selectors come into role. For selectors, there's something known as ID, which we are going to discuss in CSS. So ID is basically a unique ID to every element. For H, and I define that an ID. That ID is not predefined. I can myself define whatever I want. H1 ID is equal to, let's say, heading 1. And your ID should not be anything random. Here, for example, h1 id is equal to hello. That's not a good id. But heading 1, however, because this is your heading 1, is a fine id. So heading, the id of the whatever tag you are defining an id to should reflect the tag in some way. So, but you can name whatever you want. At the end of the day, you can name your id whatever you want, and then you can define some properties to this id only. So they'll be specific for this heading only. If you want, you can define it for h1. There's also one selector that is a universal selector, which can basically define your font, color, text, etc. for the entire web page instead of focusing on individual things. So we have already discussed about CSS color, CSS font family, and CSS font size. We also discussed something about CSS border, right? We basically just discussed that if we want to add a border, for example, my text is hello, I want to add a border around this of white color and 2 pixels. I can define it as border, then first the size of the border, then the type of border, solid. There are few types that are specified in CSS. We are going to discuss it. And then the color, in this case white. So you can define the border for nearly all HTML elements. You can, if hello is a paragraph, so we can simply write p, then border, and then closed. So this is how we can define a border, and it ends with semicolon. So semicolon basically means we are terminating it. This part is terminated. That's it. Like full stop, semicolon in CSS means termination. Now what is padding? Padding is this area, the space between the text and the border. This is top padding, bottom padding, left padding, and right padding. So padding is the space between the border and the text. We can specify whatever padding we want. For example, padding 30 pixels, 1 pixel, 2 pixel. We can specify whatever padding we want. It's up to us. Then what is margin? The CSS margin property defines a space outside the border. What's this supposed to mean? For example, let's talk about this. This is taking this much space right now. Okay, what if I want it to take this much space? Then I can define a property known as margin. If I define margin also as 30 pixels and padding also as 30 pixels, so hello, then this is not 30 pixels exactly, but yeah, this is the, let's say this is 30 pixels, and then this is 30 pixels, and this is also 30 pixels. Anything else cannot come in this area around hello. It will come after this area. It will start from, it might start from here as well, but it won't come in this area. So margin is the space we need outside the text. For example, I want to write a heading. Let's say welcome. This is my heading. Now I don't want anything to be around my heading. I don't want any text to ever come around my heading because I want the heading to have its own space, be highlighted. Then I can use margin property. You can see margin property as the space between two different elements. For example, here we have our heading and here we have a paragraph. Now if I add a margin to this heading of 50 pixels, my paragraph will automatically shift down because now this is the space for heading only. So I hope this is clear. Moving on to the next topic, which is the link, which we have already discussed, the link to external CSS. You have to write link rel is equal to style sheet, and then href is equal to whatever the link is of your document. So this is all about HTML CSS. So mainly we discussed about style, we discussed about link, how to link an external into internal. So in this video we have covered 4 major topics. One was quotation and citation, the first topic. The next topic was comments, then we discussed about colors, and then we discussed about links. So I'm going to upload the worksheet of lecture 2 and 3 combined very soon. Stay tuned. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thank you for watching. Hope the concepts are clear. If not, I know this was a lot for one video, but don't worry, it's all very easy. And if the concepts are not clear, you can just brush them up once. If you want, I can provide the link in comment section. And yeah, that's it. You can also view the lecture video, which I'm revision video, which I'm gonna upload very soon. So stay tuned and see you in the next class. Bye bye.